1998 is indeed an exciting time for the arts at Wayne State University. With the reopening of Old Main last year, many of the arts are now housed under one roof for the first time on our campus. Both the dance and theater departments are now headquartered in Old Main, and before long, Old Main will be the new home of our Department of Music. Old Main also provides several new art studios and classrooms, and the communication department can better meet the needs of its students with a new multimedia studio that is being built in that facility. But not only did we gain a unified space in which we can hang our collective hat, we also have a number of new and additional venues dedicated to the presentation of our works. This fall, the Elaine L. Jacob Gallery opened its doors with a thought-provoking exhibition featuring internationally respected artists Leon Golub and Nancy Spiro. The new gallery, committed to presenting works of contemporary art, is a beautiful complement to our community arts gallery that we'll be visiting at the end of this session. Also opening this fall was the Maggie Alessi Dance Studio. The Wayne State University dancers and the local and national dance community have embraced these spaces. Next month, the Radio City Rockettes will be holding auditions in our dance studios. In the summer, the department will co-sponsor the American Ballet Theater Summer Intensive Workshop. We eagerly await the opening of the new music recital hall, a beautiful performance space that will showcase the excellent work of our music department. Old Main is not the only place where the arts are prospering at Wayne State University. Thanks to the generous donation from Henry and Yvonne Noonan, the lobby of the Hillberry Theater has a beautiful new look. The University Theater Program has been placed on the list of Wayne State University's long-range capital outlay requests for theater renovations and a new graduate performing arts center. This is indeed a tremendous time for the arts at Wayne State University. But you know, this afternoon, we celebrate not the spaces in which artists and students come together. Rather, we celebrate art as process. In a letter to H.G. Wells, Henry James wrote, "It is art that makes life, makes interest, makes importance. And I know of no substitute whatever for the force and beauty of its process." Most people come to understand the art as product. We admire the acting that appears on the Hillberry stage, or we are moved by an art exhibition at the Elaine L. Jacob Gallery, or our senses are enlivened by a dance performance at the Bonstell, or we are delighted by a music concert at St. Andrews Hall. The artist and the student of art, however, understand that the final performance, the product, is not what it's all about. Rather, to use a metaphor from a recent blockbuster, the product is but the tip of the iceberg. As important as product is, the true mark of art is process. That wonderful synergy of creativity, physical energy, thought, beauty, and passion. It is the process of art that is the core of the mission of the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts. And it is that process that we celebrate today. This afternoon, we applaud the remarkable accomplishments of Wayne State University alumni in the areas of art and art history, art education, communication, dance, English, music, and theater. In addition, we recognize the extraordinary contribution of a local arts leader by presenting the prestigious Arts Advocate Award. We celebrate not only the wonderful objects and ideas that have been produced, but moreover, we applaud the creativity, physical energy, thought, beauty, and passion of our recipients. That confluence of forces that enables the process of art, a process that is added substantively, yet immeasurably, to the richness of our lives. I would now like to welcome Wayne State University Interim Vice President of Development and Alumni Affairs, Donald Ritzenheim, to present greetings on behalf of Wayne State University.
Thank you, Jack. On behalf of Irv Reed, I want to extend greetings from his office. He very much wanted to be here this afternoon. We're trying to get him out of town tomorrow, actually this evening, and the press of business just became too difficult, and he called me and asked me if I would step in for him, which of course I was pleased to do. Not only, of course, because my PhD advisor is the dean of the college. That was just a small coincidence. But because my own family history and relationships to Wayne State have involved the fine performing and communication arts. I was myself a student in the speech program here at Wayne. My father and his sister were both performers in the music department. In fact, my father was a charter member of the Music Honorary Society, and I have programs left over from the 40s when he and his sister would present concerts across the street at the Detroit Institute of the Arts. Before I even came to Wayne as an undergraduate, I came to the premiere season of the Hillbury Theater in 1964 and saw plays such as I had never seen before and rarely since. Our own president is himself an art enthusiast. Some of you may have read in the papers about his particular love of opera. I can assure you he is, to my knowledge, the first president of Wayne State University who has ever entertained alumni in New York City at the Metropolitan Opera, as we did this past fall. So I think you will see increasingly his personal interest in the arts at Wayne State. So at Wayne State, the issue is not one that we debate, are the arts important? That is not our debate here. Our debate at Wayne State, as it is everywhere, is how can we best support the fine, the performing, and the communication arts. And we at Wayne State suffer the same good news and bad news story that the arts and culture in Detroit generally suffer. We have enthusiastic subscribers, but we are heavily under-endowed. We are one of the most generous communities in the country when it comes to giving out of pocket to support important cultural activities, whether it's the Art Institute, whether it's the symphony, whether it's the opera, or whether it's Wayne State. But we suffer from a severe lack of endowment. And that leads me to try to describe for you a little bit of what this president's vision is for the fine, performing, and communication arts at Wayne State. And the first of those visions is that it's long overdue for the arts to be heavily and properly endowed. And he has committed, thank you, and he is committed to the Board of Governors and to his staff, and you will begin to see announcements coming in the very near future how this is all going to come together to conduct on behalf of the university and to devote his personal time to leading that effort, a major capital and endowment campaign that will benefit the arts as well as other programs, but I can assure you the arts will be high on that list. The second part of his vision for the arts at Wayne State is that the arts are among the spires of excellence that this university has. And every university will have to go through that difficult challenge of evaluating where are our centers of excellence and where do we need to put most of our resources and most of our attention. And I can assure you that the instruction, the performance, the scholarship, to use Jack's phrase, the process of the arts that is practiced in this college are and will continue to be among Wayne State's spires of excellence. And the third thing this president will look for and hope to gain is the use of the arts in a much more visible and much more public way. The arts, of course, are not a public relations arm of the university, but they are a gateway for tens of thousands of people, whether visually, whether orally, whether through theater, whether through our debating teams, to learn more about Wayne State University. And I've talked with the president, and he has a tremendous interest in seeing to it that the campus generally, and the arts in particular, become a much more visible part of Wayne State University, so that we are no longer characterized as that hidden jewel, that light under the bushel, but rather that the entire Southeast Michigan area, the nation, and even internationally knows even more about our arts programs than they do now. So on his behalf, I'm pleased to bring you greetings. If you have never attended the Arts Achievements Awards in the past, brace yourselves. You're going to hear some of the most touching stories from alumni of our programs that have come through the arts programs that you will hear from any alumni. It is one of my favorite events, and I'm honored to have a chance to greet you on behalf of the president.
Thank you, Don. Before the presentations, I would like to tell you a little bit about the awards that each recipient will receive. The award is displayed here. It is created by alumnus Sergio De Giusti, nationally known sculptor and recipient of our 1996 Arts Achievement Award in Art and Art History. The motif of the award is inspired by a wreath of laurel, traditionally given to poets, scholars, and artists in recognition of their accomplishments. Mr. De Giusti has used the leaf form and berry of the laurel as the inspiration for this beautiful award. Mr. De Giusti, are you here? Just stand and take a bow. Thank you. Now, I'd like to ask the chairs of each department to assist us in honoring our awardees. First, I would like to ask Dr. James Thomas, Chair of the Department of Theater, to come forward with Ms. Kim Carney. Professor Thomas, Ms. Carney.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you Arts Achievement Award nominee from the Department of Theater, Ms. Kim Carney. Kim has achieved distinction as a playwright with several productions of her plays in various theaters in Michigan and Los Angeles. To have a new play produced is a very challenging accomplishment, not only due to the fact that there are a limited number of slots in a theater season for new plays, but there are a very limited number of theaters for new plays to be produced in. And in view of that, Kim Carney's accomplishments are all the more impressive. She wrote her first play, Elevator, while she was a BFA theater student at Wayne State, to provide a role for everyone in her acting class. She moved to New York City in 1980, where she first pursued an acting career, performing on stage and in television and film. In 1982, she turned to playwriting as a way to create more and better roles for herself. She joined the Manhattan Playwrights Unit, acquired an agent, and her professional playwriting career began at that time. She's had a very fruitful association with Jeff Daniels' Purple Rose Theater in Chelsea, which has produced 3 of her plays, and extended run of Nooner in 1993, Only Me and You in 1995, which was the first time I got a chance to see Kim's work, and her latest play, Labor Day, in 1997. Other plays of Kim's include Photographic Memories, produced in 1987 at the Boar's Head Michigan Public Theater in Lansing and at the Baldwin Theater in Royal Oak. Both productions, by the way, won local Best Play awards. A play called Bombshells, which was produced in 1988 at the Boar's Head Michigan Public Theater and at the University of Detroit Theater Company, along with a one-act play entitled Influence under the umbrella title of Women in Bars. A play called Lib, which was produced in 1992 by the Friends and Artists Theater of Los Angeles, where it received 6 Drama-Logue Awards, including Outstanding Play, and also the musical Life is a Beach, produced in the Millennium Theater in Southfield. We just had the pleasure of seeing a staged reading of Kim's play, Lib, at the Studio Theater, and it was a delightful production. Kim is a founding member of the Detroit Playwrights Initiative. She's written playlets for each of its 3 productions, entitled Cruisin' Woodward, Detroit Stages, and Jingle Bells the Hard Way. It's an interesting play I'd like to read. She has also contributed playlets for Heartland Theater's annual fundraiser, Play by Play. In an age when theater is seeking new voices, Kim Carney is being heard loud and clear. In recognition of her impressive and growing body of produced work, the Wayne State University Department of Theater is proud to present the Arts Achievement Award to Kim Carney.
Thank you very much. When I was in high school in Lansing and I told my mother that I had my heart set on coming to Wayne State University, she said to me, "Oh, Kimmy, can't you go someplace in Michigan?" Well, I told her I had done my research and I found out that Wayne State was the best place in Michigan and maybe even in the whole country to get an education in theater. And boy, was I right. I not only learned about acting and got to perform on stage a lot, I also ran lights and sound, I sewed costumes, I stage managed. I can't imagine a more well-rounded education in every aspect of theater. I had a terrific bunch of teachers, many of whom are still at Wayne, including Professors Pullen, Anderson, Fox, and Calarco. I would also like to thank Dr. Bob McGill, who encouraged me to write my very first play, which was a one-act called The Elevator. And he let me write it and produce it for my senior class project, and he gave me an A. That got me started. I'd also like to give a special thanks to Dr. Bob Hazard, who is still the first one that I send my scripts to for his feedback. And boy, does he give it to me. When I think about my years at Wayne, so many images come to mind. Painting flats in the Hilberry Scene Shop, and exploring the upper reaches of the Bonsdale with one eye peeled for the ghost of Jesse, hanging out at the Bronx after plays, and performing in the very first company of Movin' Theater alongside my future husband and father of our child, Tim Holton. See, Wayne provided me with more than just a theater education. I will always be grateful for the learning that I received at Wayne State University, skills and knowledge that I use today, not only when I have a play in production, but every time I sit down to write. I'd like to dedicate this award to my mother, June Breisch. I wish she could be here today. Thanks again for this wonderful honor.
I'd like to ask Dr. Marion Jackson, Chair of the Department of Art and Art History, to come forward with Miss Laura Christmas Tree. Professor Jackson.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to introduce and to welcome to Wayne State University Laurie Christmas Tree. By way of introduction, I'd like to read the citation which is included in the folder, which I'll be handing to Laurie Christmas Tree in just a few minutes. Recently returned to the United States after a year in Bulgaria, where she was researching folk textiles as an inspiration for creating artist books and handmade paper, Laurie Christmas Tree is an artist of international stature whose accomplishments and awards have brought honor both to herself and to Wayne State University. Laurie Christmas Tree's association with Wayne State began in 1974 when she entered the Master of Fine Arts program in fibers, having completed at that time a baccalaureate degree from Simmons College in Boston and having nourished her interest in further study of the arts through post-degree work at the College of the Dayton Art Institute. When Laurie Christmas Tree completed her 2-year MFA from Wayne in 1976, she had attained such respect in this community that she was invited to continue on at Wayne for 5 more years as instructor in the Fibers program, as gallery and events coordinator, and as faculty advisor to the Student Art Forum. In 1981, Laurie Christmas Tree left Wayne to join the faculty of the State University of New York at Buffalo, where she continues today as professor of design. Now, like most inspiring teaching artists, Professor Christmas Tree is a serious practicing artist and has a very active exhibition record. She has continued to work inventively in fibers, while at the same time has developed an international reputation for her creative work with limited edition artist books. Working through the Visual Studies Workshop in Rochester, New York, Professor Christmas Tree has created artist books in editions of 500 to 700 with such provocative titles as Junior Senior Prom, The Ballerina, Mother Mate Images, and You Don't Greet Me at the Door Anymore. During the past 20 years, Professor Christmas Tree has had nearly 20 one-person exhibitions and has participated in more than 50 group shows throughout the United States and in countries as diverse as Yugoslavia, Russia, Croatia, Macedonia, Israel, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Germany, and Canada. Her works are held in many important private and public collections, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Tate Gallery, London, England, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, Albright Knox Art Gallery, Buffalo, the Cleveland Institute of Art, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago, the New York Public Library, and the National Museum, Belgrade, Yugoslavia. She has received numerous prestigious grants and awards, including a Fulbright Senior Scholarship for her work in Yugoslavia and an International Research Exchange Board Scholarship for her work in Bulgaria. The faculty of the Department of Art and Art History take great pride in the breadth and the excellence of Laurie Christmas Tree's accomplishments and are proud to designate Laurie Christmas Tree as the recipient of the Arts Achievement Award in Art and Art History for 1998. Congratulations.
This is great. Thank you very much. When I came to Wayne State, I was a mom. I was a wife. I had 4 kids. And I was commuting from Ann Arbor. And I have to say that I don't think there are many places in the world where you can do that. Now you can, but back when I did it, it was really difficult. And I especially want to thank Urban Japina, without whom I would not be here today. And the other thing I would like to do is, if I could sing or dance, but you know I'm in the visual arts, I would like to borrow a line from Stanley Donner's, "I'm in heaven." Thank you very much.
I'd now like to ask Professor Dennis Tini, Chair of the Department of Music, to come forward with Mr. Malcolm Johns. Professor Tini.
Thank you, Dr. Kay. Professor Johns is going to rest a moment before he comes and shares some thoughts with you. It is a pleasure on behalf of our faculty and staff and students to give you some insights in addition to your program notes regarding our marvelous Professor Emeritus Malcolm Johns. He has spent over the past 65 years being directly involved in teaching and church music and conducting throughout not only our city, state, and country, but throughout the world. He spent 45 active years as a full-time professor at Wayne State, and since then, since 1983, he has been a regular member of our adjunct faculty. And every year, Malcolm Johns comes back to the old St. Mary's concerts, which he founded at the downtown Greektown area, and he conducts, and he speaks to the people on behalf of music, the arts, and our city and community. Malcolm Johns is also a tremendous organist in addition to his marvelous conducting and choral music research and performance skills. He literally went throughout countries of the world to research ethnic music and brought that music back to Wayne State University and then found the appropriate churches and temples and performance spaces throughout our community to recognize the incredible community talent and backgrounds and ethnicities here in Detroit in one community. Many of you may know that in the late 60s, during a very difficult time in our community, Malcolm Johns went to the leaders of our city and to Diane Edgecombe from the city organizations, and he said, "I think we should heal our city through the common language of music." And he started the old St. Mary's Downtown Salute Concerts to Detroit. Those have continued for 31 years through his efforts and his direction and his conducting. Additionally, he has inspired thousands of students who are now performers, educators, and artists throughout the world with his message of intense communication, musicality, and love for the art form. I know that I speak for my colleagues, in particular composers around the world and around our community, where he amassed a number of first performances for compositions in this area more than any other conductor in Michigan. Those are choral and orchestral compositions, and he literally challenged people to do that and to keep our living composers out in front of the community as well as those of the past. He also took the standard choral and orchestral masterworks of our heritage internationally and presented first performances here in Michigan of those major works like the Duraflay Requiem and many other major performance compositions here more than any other composer and conductor in this area. A number of years ago, we needed an organ for our organ performance students. Community Arts Auditorium has the finest organ in southeast Michigan right now because Malcolm Johns went to the Fruhoff Truck and Bus Corporation and he said, those students have to have a good organ to learn and to play and to develop their artistry. And the head of Fruhoff said, how much do you need, Professor Johns? And he made that happen, and that organ for the music department is sitting in Community Arts Auditorium to this day from 1956. He received an honorary doctorate from the University of Detroit for his tremendous research and also community development of the art form. And he has been one of the most prolific ambassadors of art and music, not only throughout this area, but throughout the world. I know my colleagues and I, our students, share a wonderful delight in presenting to you as our Arts Achievement Award recipient in music, Professor Emeritus Malcolm Johns.
I'd now like to ask Professor Eva Powers, Chair of the Department of Dance, to come forward with Ms. Marion Kirk-Jones. Professor Powers.
Good afternoon. This afternoon was actually the first time I got the pleasure to meet Marion Kirk-Jones. We've been talking over the telephone for quite some time now, and I found out about her quite by happenstance from a colleague that I met at a conference one year who said, we have a wonderful faculty person on our faculty who's from Wayne State University, and this was in Arizona. And I said, that can't be. I don't know of anyone who's from Wayne State University in dance that teaches in Arizona. And she kept arguing with me, and finally she sent me Marion's vita, her resume, and all this information. I said, this is amazing, this wonderful woman who's accomplished all these things, and we don't know anything about her in Detroit at Wayne State because she's been in Arizona all these years. And I'm ecstatic that we found her and discovered her and are able to give her this award today. Marion began her career, her dance career here in Detroit early in 1940, taking her first ballet lessons with Olga Fricker at the Jessie Bonstell Theater School of Drama and Dance, which I found out, oh, I'm sorry, I stand corrected, 1930 at the Jessie Bonstell Theater School of Drama and Dance. And so that was great information for me to learn too. Influenced by her parents, who were very arts-oriented and very famous in their own right in the arts world, and supported by the artistic environment here in Detroit, she took off from here and studied with dancers who today read like a list of who's who in dance in America. Such people such as Martha Graham, Doris Humphrey, Hanya Holm, Ted Shawn, Louis Horst, and then studying at the School of American Ballet with George Balanchine, Anatol Abukov, Pierre Vlasimirov, Muriel Stewart. In 1944, she became a member of the Lester Horton Dance Company. So a very, very prestigious beginning of her illustrious career. Returning to the Detroit area somewhat later, she attended Wayne University while teaching dance at the Cranbrook Institutions, at Mercy College, Royal Oak High School, Lincoln High School in Ferndale, and at the Birmingham Community House. Later, she had other teaching assignments, faculty adjunct positions at Cornell University, Purdue University, and the University of Rochester. Currently, she's professor of dance at Arizona State University. Since joining the faculty at ASU in 1970, she has choreographed extensively for the ASU Dance Theater and serves as artistic director for the fall and spring concerts. Professor Jones's teaching specialties are dance history, dance notation, dance improvisation, and choreography. Professor Jones also choreographs for other dance companies, including the Desert Dance Theater, a local Phoenix professional dance company. She became the artistic director for Desert Dance Theater in 1988 and has been sharing those responsibilities since 1993 with two other fellow directors. In connection with Black History Month and the Martin Luther King holiday, Ms. Jones collaborated on a trilogy of large-scale works devoted to the civil rights movement. These dances, entitled Judgments, Free at Last, and Sister Moses, the story of Harriet Tubman, have been performed widely throughout Phoenix, throughout Arizona, and the public schools. Sister Moses is still being performed today. In 1982, Professor Jones won the Arizona Commission on the Arts Choreographers Fellowship Award and received special recognition as an artist from the governor in 1983. She served as the artistic coordinator of the Artistic Arizona Gala Dance Benefit for AIDS in 1990. The Arizona Dance Showcase produced a Gamage Center for Arts in 82 and 84, and for the National College Dance Festival in 1992. In addition to her career in dance, Professor Jones is the secretary and founding board member of the National Council on HIV Disease and is an associate of the Arizona Institute for Peace, Education, and Research. For these most important contributions to dance and to society, and for all of her accomplishments since her graduation from Wayne University, we applaud Marion Kirk-Jones's dedication and commitment to the art of dance. The Wayne State University Dance Department proudly presents Marion Kirk-Jones with the 1997 Arts Achievement Award.
I have to say I was kind of a weird student here at Wayne because this was for my bachelor's degree, and I went to 5 different institutions trying to get this degree put together. And it was difficult to put it together because I was always dancing somewhere or teaching somewhere, and I had 2 kids and all the rest of it. You mentioned how wonderful it was. No, I think it was you who mentioned how wonderful it was to have an institution that could understand this. It took me 21 years and 5 institutions to get my bachelor's degree. And at one point, when I was having great difficulties in tracking down all these transcripts, you know, and papers and all the rest of it, one of the colleges had gone kaput. I mean, they were not. So I had to find these people and these records and these transcripts and all the rest of it. And finally I did, and I got a letter from Wayne State University, which I have always kept. And all it said was, "Your transcripts have finally arrived. Shall we put out the flag?" So as you can see, I'm very grateful to this university. I did my degree in humanities because there wasn't a dance major program here. And that has been wonderful because I do teach dance history. And I did subsequently get a master's in humanities. So I've got the 2 things going, which is very good for dance. You always need to have a few other things going on. Another thing I wanted to tell about Wayne is that when I was 15 years old, here at Wayne University, they had some sort of choreography contest. And people from all over the state, dancers from all over the state, came in. And we had the auditions down in what was some old gymnasium. I'm not quite sure where it was. She's been trying to show me. Anyway, I won that choreography contest in that I got to do my piece along with a few others. And that was another thing that set me on my course. That was encouragement, and it was wonderful. The other thing is that I have known Wayne for a long time because my father was in the art department. He taught silversmithing at Cranbrook and here. And you have a piece of his work in the, where is it? In the president's apartment. And of course, I always remember him. And I would like to dedicate my thing to my father and my mother. Thank you.
I would now like to ask Professor Holly Thien and Dr. Arthur Park, program coordinators of art education, to come forward with Dr. Victor Mizell.
I'm Holly Thien, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Arthur Park to present the award.
The problem is, unlike the Oscars, we don't have a thing here where we can take turns reading this presentation. In consideration of his exceptional career, the art education faculty recommends that Wayne State University honor Dr. Victor H. Mizell, art historian, author, and exceptional art educator. It seems appropriate that we honor an art historian art educator during the 70th anniversary of the founding of our program area. Art history is at the core of art education, along with an understanding of the creative process and the process of art. Victor has always had each of these interests. He earned his bachelor's degree from Wayne State University in art education, painting and sculpture in 1950. His first teaching experience was in the Detroit Public Schools, where he taught drawing and painting. Entering the Army in 1952, he traveled to Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. Over the years, he returned to these countries and at least 10 other countries to continue his art history research. A wise art educator once said, "We should not simply be about helping our students know art, we should be about helping them love art with a passion." Jane Betsy Welling, the founder of our education program, and whose name I have to say on this 70th anniversary, was one of Victor's teachers, and she was able to help her students love art with a passion and encourage them to take it in their own direction. Victor developed a passion for art history and pursued it by earning both an MA and PhD in art history at the University of Michigan. Seeing his great potential, and I might add, fearing he might return to Wayne State, they kept him. There, he rose through the ranks from instructor to full professor, and now professor emeritus. He is known as one who helps his students love art with a passion. Dr. Measle always approached art history with love, joy, and passion. Last night he spoke to us by telling a wonderful story connecting art with bubblegum cards. Along with his research and travel, he learned to speak or read German, French, Italian, Russian, and Spanish. His books or articles have been published in English, German, French, and Spanish. He lectured, taught, and presented symposiums, including topics ranging from ancient art through German Expressionism to Picasso, Dada, Max Beckmann, modern sculpture, Kandinsky, and 20th century painting, to name only a few. Among many other institutions, Dr. Measle lectured at Yale University Symposium, the Guggenheim Museum, the National Gallery, Washington, D.C., the Detroit Institute of Art, and Wayne State University. We have had him back. For his work as a superlative art historian, author, university professor, lecturer, and teacher, therefore as an exceptional art educator, Wayne State's University Art Education Program proudly presents Dr. Victor Measle with a 1997 Arts Achievement Award in Art Education.
With such an introduction, I'll just thank the people who put this together first. That's extremely flattering, and thank you. But in general, too, a general and deep thank you to everybody associated with the event. But I have 7 names, and in my recollection, they become, so to speak, the Magnificent Seven, or professors of mine here at Wayne. And of course, the first would be Jane Betsy Welling, Professor Jane Betsy Welling of the History of Art, Art Education Department. And then they didn't have an History of Art department when I went to Wayne. But the next name that comes to mind is Professor Ernst Shire for art history. And then for history, Professor Bosenbroek. And then, it's been a long time because I graduated in 1950, and I don't see any of their faces here, I'm afraid. But from the German department, it would be Professor Orden and Professor Basilius. And from the art department, I spent a good many hours in those studios and garages that we had at the old Wayne, Professor Claxton and Professor Woodward. So they add up to 7, and they're the Magnificent Seven. And why not dedicate this, because they earned it as much as I. So this award, I'll say thank you to them. And thank you to you.
I'd like to call Robert Burgoyne, Dr. Robert Burgoyne, Chair of the Department of English, to come forward with Mr. Frank Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Kay. It's a great pleasure to be able to present this award to Frank Paul, who has been a friend of mine for about 15 years, ever since I first came to him, as a matter of fact. But he is something of an oddity for the English department. That is, his main claim to fame is his work as a musician, though I think he could also be awarded for work as a dancer and as perhaps even as a studio artist. Frank Paul is an imaginative artist whose work traverses the widest possible range of media and genre. For convenience sake, I'll call him an experimental musician, but I think even this rather open-ended description is entirely too restrictive. One of Mr. Paul's recent works, for example, which I think expresses nicely his aesthetic inventiveness, is entitled The St. John's Harbor Symphonies, which he composed for the 1994 Sound Symposium in Newfoundland. This site-specific composition featured 6 tugboats and a Coast Guard vessel serving as musical instruments. Following Mr. Paul's score, the tugboats sounded their horns at specified intervals and for specified durations, producing a harbor symphony that could be heard, Frank tells me, for miles and miles around. This composition reflects Mr. Paul's long-standing interest in using found instruments and instruments of unusual scale, an interest which is reflected in his recent work in a very different genre, a genre we might call oral sculpture. Mr. Paul has created a series of works that he calls virtual pets, kinetic sculptures that produce musical patterns of sound. A recent example is his installation entitled Virtual Gerbil, which consists of a gerbil cage and exercise wheel wired to move on its own in a way that creates a hypnotic pattern of musical notes. Virtual Gerbil, which won a major award, was featured by WDET in their report on the exhibition Technology and the Arts in Detroit in 1997. Frank Paul has experimented with more traditional forms as well. For example, he has recently revived the venerable tradition of the one-man band, performing in Tokyo, Kyoto, Ann Arbor, and Ypsilanti using his own invented and found instruments. The one-man band, Mr. Paul tells me, has a long provenance in folk music. His interest in the one-man band is an indication of the range of influences and idioms that Mr. Paul fuses in his work. He has also composed numerous works for theater, dance, and film, including the score for the Tyree Guyton documentary, Strange Fruit. His compositions for dance include 2 for Peter Sparling, head of the dance department at the University of Michigan, and several for Terry Saris, a faculty member at the University of Michigan in dance and video. His compositions for theater include many works for the Prospero Theater Company of Ann Arbor. He also heads the band Only a Mother and has served as producer and recording engineer for many national and international artists. Unless Mr. Paul's accomplishments and talents appear to be hopelessly distant from the type of work ordinarily associated with the Department of English, I'll also mention his work as a writer, which includes an essay in the well-regarded and well-named collection, Violin Music in the Age of Shopping. Frank Paul, through his work in a variety of media, has gained international recognition and local appreciation as an experimental artist of truly remarkable range and invention. It is my privilege to present Mr. Frank Paul with the 1998 Arts Achievement Award.
I'm glad that prevent was just a slip of the tongue. You may be wondering what a degree in English has to do with music and sound art. First of all, there's research involved in preparation for music commissions. There's also choices to be made as to the genre, when to Mickey Mouse and when to play counterpoint to a scene. And just as there is a text for a play, music can work with a text and a subtext. It can also work as figure and ground. But more importantly, my years at Wayne prepared me by instilling in me a sense of hard work and dedication to a project, regardless of commercial rewards. As an undergrad at Wayne State, Joe Gomez and Dennis Turner of film studies were role models of dedication. I'm just going straight to the thanks. I should also thank Joe, who was my student advisor, for letting me indulge myself in so many classes from other departments that I graduated with an extra 20-some credits. I'm surprised it didn't take me 21 years. I suppose it makes me some sort of overachieving slacker before there were slackers. Even though I never took a class with Henry Galemba, I can remember sitting in his office dozens of times. He was around here someplace. Playing tapes of compositions that I can only hope have been destroyed by time. Thanks for not kicking me out of your office, Henry. I also remember taking a course in Finnegan's Wake with Gene Flood, who helped me begin to decipher one of the damnedest novels ever written. It was probably in that class that I discovered that a text can work on an infinite number of levels. As James Joyce liked to say, my work is not trivial, it's quadrivial. That's not mine. I should also thank the office staff of the English department who put up with me as a receptionist, projectionist, clerk, and probably the worst typist who ever walked through their doors. And lastly, there are 3 people whose support and respect in the years since I left Wayne State I cherish today. Barb Burgoyne, Donna Landry, and Gerald McLean. Thank you all very much.
I'd like to call upon Dr. Edward Pappas, interim chair of the Department of Communication, to come forward with Eric Smith. Professor Pappas?
I'm pleased and honored to present this Arts Achievement Award to Eric Smith on behalf of the Department of Communication. The amazing thing about Eric Smith is his genial, lighthearted image on the air after 35 years in a stress-filled business known for burning out the best and brightest talents. 5 minutes earlier, he might have been rushing back the Lodge Freeway from Detroit to the Southfield studios of WXYZ Channel 7 with a story destined for the noon newscast, praying there wouldn't be a traffic tie-up or a flat tire. He might have had only seconds to prepare his news report, but he goes on the air and delivers without a hitch, eyes twinkling, sharp-witted, chatty, and friendly. A former boss described Eric this way: he has a natural curiosity. He is a man who's at the absolute top of the journalistic profession. He's the ideal reporter, the ideal anchor. But he's never content, and that's why he continues to grow. Eric has won 6 Emmys, 6 Individual Achievement Awards from the Wire Services, and various Community Service Awards. But the awards don't tell the Eric Smith story. Smith's family moved from Portland, Maine to Dearborn in 1950, and he started his career at Channel 7 in 1962 while he was still in college at Wayne State. The news department roster, which now has more than 115 employees, was 3 names long. Pressed into duty to single-handedly cover a tornado, Smith so impressed his bosses, he was named news director, and he was barely old enough to go into a saloon. Less than a year later, he left to work for WKNR AM, a rock and roll station with a good news department, because he wanted to work in front of a microphone, not behind it. He returned to Channel 7 a year or 2 later and left again to do television advertising, which he hated, and quit. He won a spot at a CBS affiliate in San Francisco. His first day there, on-air personalities were having a dispute with management, so he did the news, the sports, and the weather. And famed newspaper columnist Herb Caen wondered in print, who's the used car salesman from Cleveland on Channel 5? Eric was devastated. But it was there he developed the chatty style he is famous for, and he returned to Channel 7 in the mid-'70s to stay. Smith has a knack for finding good stories about little people in the style of Charles Kuralt. For example, he profiled the Mexican-American who assisted famed artist Diego Rivera when he painted the DIA murals, and found and interviewed the first man to score a touchdown at U of M Stadium. But he's also covered the big stories: the disappearance of Teamster leader Jimmy Hoffa, the crash of Flight 255 at Metro Airport, post office shootings in Royal Oak and Dearborn, and he was the last man to interview Malcolm X before he was assassinated. He is also a talented singer and songwriter, and you may have heard him in the background going doo-wah, doo-wah in the background on Motown Records. Detroit News television critic Tim Kiska says, Eric is the conscience of Channel 7. He's got everybody's respect. He can anchor, he can cover a hard news story, he can spin a feature, and he is always fresh. That may be because of his wife, Sharon, who maintains the Smith Hideaway in Brighton Township. Or it may be because he says, I don't like to bring bad news to the public, and it can be argued that too much bad news is bad. I refuse to be cynical. Life is a wonderful experience. There are bad days and good days, and I prefer the good days. I guess I'm an optimist. I would like to simply add that the day we chose Eric Smith to be our Arts Achievement Award winner was one of the good days, and we are proud, Eric, to present this recognition of your long and positive career.
You better come over here and pinch me. I want to make certain I'm still alive. I'm not usually lost for words, but to be in the company of the recipients of the Arts Achievement Awards is so very, very special. I truly, I thought when Ed notified me about this, I said, who's on the nominating committee here? You know, you guys better go back to the drawing board, because I really haven't done anything that deserves any attention. And I just, you know, if this were Wayne's World, I'd say I'm not worthy to be in the company of, especially my dear friend, Dr. Malcolm Johns, whom we made music together in the choral union and over in, I don't know how many churches we've sung together, and special friend and special man. And I was going to say, Doc Langsford, who passed on, was another one. Wonderful memories, you know, they conjure them up as we talk and listen to the stories. But I was here in the early 60s when you could not find a place to park. And we did registration on paper. Of course, that was before computers. So, you know, we spent hours and hours and hours down at St. Antoine or somewhere. And, of course, the Alcove Bar was a good place for me in those days. But it's impossible to thank everybody who has had really a hand in what's happened to me since I left Wayne. As you note on the program, I never finished. It took you 21 years. It took you 21 years. I'm on 35, and you know, I've led a life of very few regrets, but that's one of them. And I promised Ed today, one of these days, I'm going to come back and wear a cap and gown. I do want to recognize some special people, and one of them was Dr. Jack Warfield, who was the chairman of the Mass Communications Department for a good many years. He kind of helped me along. Dr. Richard Ward, who was a professor of geology, you may wonder what that has to do with anything, but he gave me a D- so I could get through my science requirement. And it has been a wonderful friend over the years, I might add. Dr. Harry Langsford, as Mac mentioned, wonderful. Many years in the Glee Club, and we sang in many different states and had great fun. And I wound up at Motown making music with Stevie Wonder because of all of the wonderful musical associations I had. I kind of split my time. And Dr. Leonard Leone in the theater department, who, you know, kept tugging me in both directions and made me a spear carrier in King Lear. Sharon, who was a student here, you wouldn't know it because she spent all of her time cutting classes and getting me lunch at Ruby's Delicatessen down on Woodward, which I guess is gone now too. And I must thank WXYZ TV for giving me just creative freedom, which is rare in my business, and they have just been so good to me for so very long and allowed me to stretch out and use what limited skills I have in I think, a positive way. And finally, we seem to be dedicating awards this afternoon, and I would not and could not be here if I did not mention a very special friend turned out to be a mentor, who was a professor. I don't, well, maybe technically he wasn't a professor. He was an instructor here by the name of Charlie Clarity. And we knew him as Lone Star Charlie. And he was the guy that sent me out the door and said, go over to Channel 7. If you got that job, go get it, because you'll learn more over there than we can teach you in a year here. And so I made the jump, and I left school, and then I got married, and then we had kids, and then I didn't get back to school, and that's all Charlie's fault. But were it not for his counsel and mentoring in my days here at Wayne, I really would not be standing here. So to Lone Star Charlie, thank you.
I would now like to welcome Vice President Ritzstein back to the lectern to present our Arts Advocate Award to Ms. Emma Lazarus-Shaver. Accepting the award on behalf of Ms. Shaver is Mr. Harvey Bean.
It gives me great pleasure to read from a portion of the citation for Emma Lazarus-Shaver. Ms. Emma Lazarus-Shaver has been an outstanding advocate for the arts locally, nationally, and internationally throughout her many years of artistic involvement. During her earlier career, Ms. Shaver was an outstanding soprano soloist and operatic artist, performing nationally and internationally, in addition to performances throughout the Detroit area. Ms. Shaver's support as a major donor of the Department of Music, local arts organizations, numerous charitable foundations has been exemplary. As well as performing as a soprano soloist with Leonard Bernstein and several European orchestras, Emma Lazarus-Shaver performed with the Detroit Civic Opera Company, the San Carlo Opera, the Cincinnati Opera Company, the Mexico City Opera, and was a guest soloist with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the Israel Symphony Orchestra, and the Haifa Symphony Orchestra. Emma Lazarus-Shaver has received honorary degrees from the Juilliard School and the Jewish Teachers Seminary, as well as having been awarded the Eleanor Roosevelt Humanities Award in 1967 by the State of Israel Bonds. In 1954, she established the Morris and Emma Shaver Educational Fund at the Wayne State University Press. Ms. Shaver has been a director and trustee for numerous diverse organizations and also a member of a number of foundations and boards, including the American Israel Cultural Foundation. She was founder of the Harry S. Truman Center for Advancement of Peace in Jerusalem. She's a member of the Jewish National Fund, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Detroit Public Library, and the Wayne State University Anthony Wayne Society. Wayne State University is honored to recognize Ms. Emma Lazarus-Shaver as our 1997 Arts Advocate Award recipient.
This morning I spoke to Mrs. Shaver, and she wanted to express that she's very disappointed that she was not able to attend. She feels very honored to be the recipient of this award. She would also like to thank Professor Dennis Tini and the department for keeping her involved with the university. He has spent a great deal of time regarding this, and she is very grateful for it. Although she's not an alumnus of Wayne State University, over the past years she has shown her interest in Wayne State with her support of not only the music department, but also her interest in the Wayne State Press and the business school with the establishment of a student scholarship there. Mrs. Shaver also has always been concerned with the quality of education provided to young musicians, and would like to thank the university for providing her the opportunity to assist these musicians. Although she was an outstanding performer during her lifetime, she's very fortunate in that she has had the ability to support all of these causes, and she has done so very generously. And she would like to thank you very much.
As the words of our recipients attest, this is indeed a great time for the arts at Wayne State University in the city of Detroit. We're just delighted with the quality of the recipients and their contributions to the process of the arts. I'd like to issue a couple special thanks to those who worked on bringing you the Arts Achievement Awards ceremony. There's a committee, the President's Cultural Affairs Committee, consisting of a number of individuals: Richard Belaitis, Pat Berninsky, Robert Burgoyne, Wendy Evans, Holly Feen, Mame Jackson, Ed Pappas, Arthur Park, Eva Powers, Eileen Rader, Suzanne Spiegel, Diane Shane, James Thomas, Dennis Tini, Kay Wallace, and Roger Wareham that I'd like to issue a special thanks to. And I'd also, And I'd also like to issue a very special thanks to Eileen Rader, Director of Special and Outreach Programs, and her staff for the invaluable assistance in putting on this event. Eileen? Last and not least, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending this event. It's been a great deal of fun, and we invite you over to the Community Arts Gallery for a reception honoring the recipients and also giving you an opportunity to see the Wayne State University Graduate Thesis Exhibition. Please join us just across the hallway in Community Arts. Thanks very much. I think